We're pretty blessed with the Elli-Yacht when it comes to maneuverability. It has twin screws, or two engines and two props, so that you're able to pivot and spin the boat. It makes it highly maneuverable. We are also lucky enough we have
a bow thruster.
Yeah. So when things get sporty out, I don't know, with current or super windy, or God forbid you're in the locks and they're flooding them and it starts pushing the bow away from the wall, and I don't know, you have two more boats tied to you, it's almost impossible, especially of someone like Carlin's stature.
It makes it really hard. I'm only so strong, and with the currents and having boats tied up, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. So that brought us to the conclusion, it's great that we have all this maneuverability. These helms are well outfitted. But the problem is, they're inside. So if we're on the bow tending lines or at the stern tending lines or single-handing through the locks, there's no way you can get back into the helm and be able to maneuver the boat. So that brought us to the point we had to start thinking about some different solutions that we could apply. So we thought about, gosh, maybe we put in a stern thruster, get a remote to be able to move both the bow and the stern at the same time. There are boats that have native helms at the bow or at the stern, but to retro one of those into a boat would be...
That'd be silly.
Yeah, and expensive. It'd be a mess. So that really wasn't an option. So we started looking at what I'll call mobile helms, and we ended up with selecting this solution, which is the DockMate. And the best part about this, it's completely configurable with software, which means cool stuff like, hey, we don't even have to get a stern thruster. This thing can be programmed so that if we just move the joystick to the port, at the same time, instead of rotating the bow to the starboard, it triggers the bow thruster at the same time. And what that does is it moves the boat sideways. The same thing you would get out of having a bow thruster and a stern thruster, but you get all this other functionality as well. So Neil, let's talk through how we installed it, what the features are, and really, was it worth it? So before we talk about the install, let's just talk about what this thing can do. Not only can it control the motion of the boat, but you can also drop and weigh the anchor. That's slick. If you push the center of the joystick, it's got a little detent on it, and it blows the horn. So if you're coming out of a blind fairway, you can signal to everybody that you're coming out, and you don't have to be at the helm. That's pretty cool. You can control your bow thruster. If you had a stern thruster, which we don't, you could control that as well. The other part is, obviously, it has a really intuitive joystick. Now, you might say, joystick, whatever, I just need to be able to control the engines, and I can control the bow thruster and stern thruster, and that's fine, it makes sense. But the other solutions that are on the market are what I call bang-bang, or they're on-off solutions. So what I mean by that is, the bow thruster, if you push the bow thruster, it's on or it's off. Now, if you have a progressive bow thruster, which those are kind of the new cool things on the market, where you could think about an accelerator on your car. Think if you pushed it down, it was either on or off. That would be frightening and scary. Just like an accelerator where you can push it down and you can let off and the car will accelerate and decelerate, a progressive bow thruster does the same thing. Much like the engines on a boat, right? You have throttles and you throttle up and you throttle back, and that's progressive. But the solutions that are out there, they're on and off. They just are programmed to run the engines up to a particular RPM, and then when you let off the button,
it stops.
Yeah. On this one, this is completely progressive with our engines, so we're able to gently be able to push that joystick, and it will start ramping up the RPMs, and then if we let off, it will ramp them back. So you have a ton of control. The really cool part is this joystick is programmed to not only be able to pivot the boat, but at the same time be able to run the bow thruster and walk the entire boat sideways just with pushing this joystick sideways. And that's all through software configuration. Kind of blew my mind. I was a little skeptical. They have a money-back guarantee. It's 30 days. And they let you really try out the solution. And if you don't like it, you just hand it back to them. Now that might sound crazy. how in the heck are you going to install something like this, configure it, and then take it out of the boat? I mean, you have to probably cut into the wiring harnesses. It would just be a mess. And that's actually not the case. They have the native plugs for the throttles and the wiring harnesses, whatever boat that you have, so a ZF or Cummins or Glendinning or Volvo, it just plugs directly into your system. And so you can unplug it as well and just remove it. So if you ever wanted to take the system with you, when you sell the boat, you can take it with you. It's one of those things like in life that doesn't ever happen, right? It's like money. You can't take it with you when you die. But DockMates, you can. So that's pretty slick. It's a very elegant solution, and I'm not a big fan of anyone cutting into wiring harnesses. So like I said, it's a really simple, easy install. Now the next part is when they do install it at the dock, they'll go through and they will basically set the throttles, maximum throttles, RPMs. They will wire the bow thruster, the horn, the anchor windlass, all of that's wired at the dock. So you can try it out and make sure that it's working. But once you're done doing that, then you go for a sea trial. And it took about how long?
45 minutes.
Yeah. Now on the sea trial, we basically just went out and found a buoy out in the middle of the lake. It wasn't a windy day at all, thank goodness. So that means as we tuned the boat, which, when you think about it, we have a bow thruster that's actually set up for a 70-foot boat. It's a very powerful bow thruster. It's set up as a bang-bang bow thruster, so unfortunately the DockMate has to control it that way. But when it's on, we have to tune the engines in the twist mode, or if we're rotating the boat, to be exactly matched to the same thrust that the bow thruster is giving us, so they can move the boat sideways perfectly, because otherwise the bow would move too fast or it wouldn't move fast enough and it would just start rotating the boat and it wouldn't work. So that's where you spend most of your time on the setup. Once we did that, then we brought it back into the slip. So right off the bat, we've never used the system before. We've never backed into our slip before. The reason is that we run all of our water and our power off the bow, and that just matches up, it makes the most sense how we come into our slip. So we figured, let's try something new. And it worked out, well, pretty well.
Yeah.
In fact, here, we'll show you how it goes. So a slight twist, it sets the engines to a rotation. And it is progressive, so if I push harder, I get more throttle. If I push lighter, I get less throttle. The remote has a picture of a boat on it, and it's not just for looks. You just want to make sure that you keep the orientation of the remote towards the bow, or you're going to go the wrong direction.
Once you make the rotation, it should be good.
This being our first time to use the DockMate, we approached it the same way that we dock every time. Carlin stands at the stern and she tells me what our clearances are, and I keep an eye on everything from the bridge generally, this time from the bow. Now that we're familiar with the DockMate, we really don't need to be standing on both ends of the boat. I can walk throughout the entire boat and keep an eye on the clearances on both port, starboard, stern, and bow. So it's really easy. Probably took about 3 to 4 times of maneuvering with the boat in close quarters to get really comfortable with the DockMate. It can be pretty powerful. The boat will leap one direction or the other if you lean into it too hard. So you really have to learn that it's just a gentle touch to move the boat. You'll see that Carlin will be able to step off the boat here. Just move the boat sideways and she can step right onto the dock. And then just gently bring the boat back with the dual screws, and you can course correct along the way. It made for a very enjoyable, relaxed docking experience. Some other questions you might ask. This system, can it work if I have mechanical throttles? No. You'll have to have a Glendinning type of a system put in that's electronic that then this can interface into. That's kind of a bummer, especially boats that are older, but that's just the reality around it. But if you did put in a Glendinning system, you can use it. At the end of the day, what would we improve on this? we have an anchor counter that's remote, and it sure would be nice to have somewhere on here how much road that we've let out, because we have to use our anchor counter remote to know how much we've let out to set the appropriate scope. That'd be cool if we had that.
Yep.
Right? Some of the other things, I don't know. Really, it's a limitation of our boat. I wish we had a progressive bow thruster. Would it be better if we had a stern thruster as well, and we could just use the joystick to move sideways, and it wouldn't be pivoting with the engines, it would just be the bow thruster and stern thruster? Yeah, probably. But we were able to put this solution in the boat for just about as much as it would have cost to put in the stern thruster. And I would have had to replace the bow thruster because it's not progressive, and it would have been way more money to go do that. I was skeptical. I didn't know if it was actually going to work.
It works out great, especially in the locks.
Yeah. So, our next videos, we'll show you how we drop anchor, how we weigh anchor, and how it's worked out in the locks as well. But right off to begin with, I can't say enough great things about the DockMate solution. Being in IT and in software for 30 years, they really did it right. And that's one last thing too. If you decide to change out your bow thruster and stern thruster, or if we did something like that, you can upgrade and change the modules inside the main unit. So you don't have to worry about buying a solution that you're locked into. It really is able to be upgraded and modified over time depending upon the different systems that you put into your boat. Anyhow, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.